Story 1. I've been working as a theater technician for about 8 years now. Started right out of high school when I couldn't afford college, and honestly, I love what I do. I handle all the behind-the-scenes technical stuff: lighting, sound, smoke effects, you name it. The Aurora Community Theater has been my home away from home for the past 3 years. Last month, we were doing our annual production of Romeo and Juliet. It's always popular with the local community, and we'd been working on this particular show for months. The lead actress playing Juliet was this woman in her 40s who had been pestering our director for years to let her have the role. She finally wore him down, though most of us thought she was a bit too old and definitely too dramatic for the part. The night everything went wrong was our third performance of the week. Thursday evening, packed house of about 200 people. I was running the lighting booth at the back of the theater, which gives me a perfect view of both the stage and the audience. We were in the middle of Act 2, Scene 2, the famous balcony scene. The lead actress was really going all out, gesturing wildly and projecting her voice to the back row. I was operating the follow spot, keeping her illuminated as she moved around the balcony set piece. That's when I noticed something was off with our fog machine. We use it to create atmospheric effects during certain scenes, but it had been acting up all week. The maintenance guy said he'd look at it after the run ended, but I should have pushed harder to get it fixed immediately. The machine started producing way more fog than it should have. Instead of a light, dreamy mist, thick white smoke began billowing across the stage. At first, I thought maybe I could adjust it remotely from my booth, but the controls weren't responding. I radioed down to my assistant stage manager. Hey, we've got a problem with the fog machine. I'm getting too much output. Assistant stage manager, copy that. Should I kill it? Yeah, shut it down now. Something's definitely wrong with it. But it was too late. The smoke was getting thicker, and I could see audience members in the front rows starting to cough and look around nervously. The fog machine must have overheated or had some kind of malfunction, because what was coming out didn't look like our normal theatrical fog anymore. That's when the fire alarm went off. The piercing sound echoed through the theater, and our emergency lighting kicked in automatically. This was standard procedure any time the fire alarm activates. We stop the show and begin evacuation protocols. I immediately started the evacuation announcement over the theater's PA system. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to evacuate the building immediately. Please exit through the nearest marked exit in an orderly fashion. Do not use the elevators. The audience started getting up from their seats, and most people seemed calm but concerned. Our ushers were directing people toward the exits just like we'd practiced in our safety drills. But the lead actress was still on stage, and she was not happy. Karen, this is ridiculous. It's just a little smoke from the effects. Everyone sit back down. The other actors had already started heading for the stage exits, but she was standing center stage, waving her arms at the audience. Karen, the show must go on. This is the most important scene. I could see her from my booth, and I couldn't believe what I was witnessing. The fire alarm was still blaring, people were trying to evacuate, and she was trying to continue the performance. Assistant stage manager, I'm going to get her off the stage. Good idea. I'll keep making announcements. But before my assistant could reach her, Karen did something that still makes my blood run cold when I think about it. She walked over to the fire alarm panel on the side wall of the stage and started yanking at it. Karen, where are the batteries in this stupid thing? She actually managed to pop open the panel and started pulling out components. Within seconds, the alarm went silent. Karen, there. Now we can finish the scene properly. The audience was confused and scared. Some people had stopped evacuating when the alarm went quiet, thinking maybe it was a false alarm. Others were still heading for the exits, unsure of what to do. I grabbed my radio and called our theater manager, who was handling crowd control in the lobby. She turned off the fire alarm. The lead actress disabled the fire alarm system. Theater manager, what? Get her off that stage now. I could see our assistant stage manager finally reaching Karen, but she was still trying to get the audience to sit back down. Assistant stage manager, ma'am, you need to evacuate immediately. This is a safety issue. Karen, safety issue. It's just a little theatrical smoke. These people paid good money to see this show, and I'm going to give them what they came for. Assistant stage manager, the fire department is already on their way. You cannot disable fire safety equipment. Karen, I'm an actress. This is my moment. Romeo and Juliet is a tragedy, and I'm not going to let some faulty equipment ruin the most important scene. By this time, I could hear sirens outside. The fire department had been automatically notified when our alarm system was triggered, and they were responding even though Karen had shut it off. I came down from my booth to help with the situation. When I got to the stage, I could see that the fog machine was still smoking, though it had finally stopped producing the thick white clouds. Ma'am, you need to leave the building now. You've interfered with emergency safety equipment. Karen, who are you to tell me what to do? I'm the star of this show. I'm the head technician, and I'm responsible for the safety of everyone in this building. Karen, well, I'm responsible for giving these people the performance of a lifetime. Just then, the fire chief burst through the stage door with 3 of his crew members. They were in full gear and ready for a serious emergency. Fire chief, everyone out of the building now. We got a report of smoke and fire alarm activation. Karen, officer, there's no fire here, just a little technical difficulty with the special effects. I'm an actress, and I can assure you everything is under control. Fire chief, ma'am, step away from that alarm panel immediately. Karen, I'm trying to explain that this is all a big misunderstanding. Fire chief, did you tamper with the fire alarm system? Karen, I just turned off that annoying noise so we could finish our show. The fire chief's expression went from professional concern to absolute disbelief. Fire chief, you disabled a fire alarm during an active alarm condition. Karen, it was a false alarm. Look around, there's no fire. Fire chief, ma'am, you're under arrest for interfering with fire safety equipment and endangering public safety. That's when Karen finally seemed to realize she was in serious trouble. Karen, under arrest. But I'm an actress. I was just trying to save the show. Fire chief, interfering with fire safety systems is a felony. You put 200 people at risk. While the fire chief was dealing with Karen, his crew was examining our fog machine. Turns out it had overheated and started producing actual smoke instead of theatrical fog. If it had been left running, it could have started a real fire. Fire inspector, this machine is completely burned out. Good thing you shut it down when you did. We noticed something was wrong and killed it as soon as we could. Fire inspector, you did the right thing. And that alarm activation probably prevented a much worse situation. Meanwhile, Karen was arguing with the fire chief about whether she should be arrested. Karen, this is completely unfair. I'm a professional actress with years of experience. Fire chief, your experience doesn't give you the right to disable fire safety equipment. Karen, but the show must go on. That's Theater 101. Fire chief, not when it puts lives at risk. The police arrived shortly after to assist with Karen's arrest. She was handcuffed and read her rights, while still insisting that she was just trying to save the performance. Police officer, ma'am, you're being charged with reckless endangerment and tampering with safety equipment. Karen, this is outrageous. I demand to speak to the theater director. Police officer, you can make your phone call from the station. Our theater director had been dealing with the evacuated audience in the parking lot, making sure everyone was safe and explaining what had happened. When he came back inside and learned what Karen had done, his face went white. Theater director, she disabled the fire alarm during an evacuation? Pulled the components right out of the panel, said the show must go on. Theater director, dear God, do you realize how much liability we could be facing? The fire department had to do a complete inspection of our alarm system before they would allow anyone back in the building. It took 2 hours to get everything cleared and reset. We had to cancel the rest of that night's performance, obviously. The audience was understanding once they learned what had happened, though many of them were shocked that someone would do something so dangerous. Theater director, ladies and gentlemen, due to tonight's safety incident, we're canceling the remainder of this evening's performance. We'll be offering full refunds or tickets to another night. Audience member, is it true that the actress turned off the fire alarm? Theater director, I can confirm that there was an interference with our safety systems, and the matter is being handled by law enforcement. Karen spent the night in jail and was released on bail the next morning, but her troubles were just beginning. The local fire marshal's office launched a full investigation. They interviewed all the theater staff and reviewed our safety procedures. Thankfully, they found that we had followed proper protocol and that the only violation was Karen's tampering with the alarm system. Fire marshal, your staff did everything right. The actress, however, committed a serious crime that could have resulted in deaths. The story made the local news, and Karen became something of a laughingstock in the community theater scene. The headline in our local paper was, "Actress Pulls Fire Alarm Batteries During Romeo and Juliet." But the legal consequences were no joke. Karen was fined $5,000 for interfering with fire safety equipment and received 6 months of community service. She was also banned from performing at any venue in our theater district. Karen, this is all blown out of proportion. I was just trying to give a good performance. Judge, Miss Karen, your actions put 200 people at risk. Fire safety systems exist to save lives, not to be turned off for convenience. Karen, but Your Honor, I'm a trained actress. I know the difference between real danger and theatrical effects. Judge, you clearly don't know the difference between appropriate behavior and reckless endangerment. Our theater had to invest in a new, more secure fire alarm system that can't be easily tampered with. We also added additional safety training for all performers about emergency procedures. The fog machine incident led to us upgrading all our special effects equipment too. The insurance company required it after they learned what had happened. 3 weeks later, we reopened Romeo and Juliet with a new actress playing Juliet. She was a college student who was thrilled to get the opportunity, and she gave an amazing performance. More importantly, she followed all safety protocols and didn't try to disable any emergency equipment. Karen tried to get her community service assignment changed to something related to theater, arguing that her skills would be better used in the arts. The judge denied her request and assigned her to picking up litter along the highway instead. Karen's lawyer, Your Honor, my client's talents would be better utilized in a community theater program. Judge, your client's talents nearly got people killed. She can think about that while cleaning up garbage. The whole incident became a cautionary tale in our local theater community. Now, whenever we do safety training for new performers, we tell the story of the actress who thought the show was more important than fire safety. 6 months later, Karen applied to audition for a show at a theater in the next town over. When they Googled her name and found the news articles about the fire alarm incident, they immediately rejected her application. Theater director from other venue, we cannot risk having someone who would endanger audience safety. As for me, I got a commendation from the fire department for following proper safety procedures during the emergency. It's hanging on the wall in my booth as a reminder that some things are more important than any show. Story 2. After losing my factory job 8 months ago, I started volunteering at our local thrift store. We're a non-profit that sells donated items at low prices to fund community programs like food banks and after-school care. One busy Saturday, a woman in expensive clothes entered, surveying the place like royalty. She grabbed a cart and started loading it indiscriminately designer clothes, electronics, books, kitchen items, toys, just grabbing armfuls without looking. 20 minutes later, she wheeled her overflowing cart to my register. I scanned everything. Your total is $237.50, I announced. She stared at me like I'd spoken another language. What do you mean, total? For your items, $237.50. You're charging me? But this is a non-profit. Yes, ma'am, we're non-profit. We use sales money to fund community programs. Non-profit means free. I know what words mean. I kept calm. Non-profit means we don't keep profits for owners. We still charge for items to fund our programs. She exploded. That's ridiculous. Non-profit literally means no profit, which means no money. Everything should be free. After I explained our low prices compared to regular stores, she demanded my supervisor. When he arrived and gave the same explanation, she lost it completely. Fine, if you want to steal from people, I'll show you what stealing looks like. She started flinging items everywhere. Clothes flew, a lamp crashed, books scattered. She hurled a ceramic vase at the wall, shattering it. Other customers backed away as she knocked over displays like a raging toddler. My supervisor called 911 while I helped customers stay safe. She pulled down an entire clothing rack. There, now you have nothing to sell. Police arrived quickly. She switched to victim mode, claiming we were running a scam. The officers explained that non-profits can charge for services, but destroying property isn't allowed. She was arrested for destruction of property and disturbing the peace. The damage totaled around $3,000. 2 weeks later, we learned she'd represented herself in court, arguing she shouldn't be responsible because she truly believed non-profit meant free. The judge sentenced her to full restitution plus court costs and 200 hours of community service at various non-profits, including our food bank. For months, I watched her sort donations in a bright orange vest, never making eye contact. Customers who'd filmed her meltdown posted it online, and it went viral locally. People visited just to hear the story, boosting our sales. The extra money expanded our after-school program, serving 50 more kids. Her tantrum actually helped more families in need. I found a new job, but still volunteer weekends. We put up signs explaining what non-profit means, just in case. Story 3. I teach 5th grade at Riverside Elementary, and I've been here for 12 years. Every spring, we hold our annual science fair, which is always a huge event for the kids and their families. Students spend weeks working on their projects, and I love seeing their excitement when they present their experiments and discoveries. This year's science fair was shaping up to be one of our best yet. The kids had really outdone themselves with creative projects ranging from volcano models to studies on plant growth. I was particularly proud of one of my students who had created an amazing project about solar energy. She had built a working solar oven and documented how different materials affected cooking temperatures. It was genuinely impressive work for a 10-year-old. The student who created this project came from a single-parent household. Her mom worked 2 jobs to make ends meet and couldn't always be there for school events. But she was incredibly supportive of her daughter's education. The little girl had spent hours at the library researching and had even saved up her allowance to buy supplies for her project. On the other side of the spectrum was another student in my class whose mother was known for being overly competitive about everything. This woman treated every school activity like it was a life or death competition. Her son was a sweet kid, but he struggled academically and had turned in a pretty basic project about which brand of paper towel was most absorbent. The night before the science fair judging, I stayed late to help set up the gymnasium. All the projects were arranged on tables with name tags clearly displayed. I double-checked everything before leaving around 8 o'clock, making sure each project was properly labeled and positioned. The next morning, I arrived early to do a final check before the judges arrived. As I walked through the gymnasium, something caught my eye. The solar oven project had been moved to a different table, and there was a different name tag on it now. Instead of the original student's name, it now had the name of the struggling student whose mother was so competitive. I looked around and found the paper towel experiment sitting where the solar oven had been, with a hardworking student's name tag on it. Someone had clearly switched the projects overnight. I immediately went to the office to check the security footage. The principal and I watched as a woman entered the gymnasium around 10 o'clock the previous night using what appeared to be a key. She went straight to the science fair displays and started switching name tags and moving projects around. It was definitely the competitive mother. She had somehow gotten access to the school and literally stolen another child's project to pass off as her son's work. The principal and I decided to let the judging proceed as planned, but we would expose what happened during the awards ceremony. We wanted to catch her in the act and make sure everyone knew what she had done. The judging went smoothly, and as expected, the solar oven project won first place. The competitive mother was practically glowing with pride as she stood next to her son's winning project. Her poor son looked confused and uncomfortable, clearly knowing he hadn't done that level of work. When it came time for the awards ceremony, the gymnasium was packed with families. The principal took the microphone to announce the winners. "Principal, before we announce our winners, I need to address something important that happened last night." The crowd quieted down, sensing something was wrong. "Principal, unfortunately, we discovered that someone entered our school illegally last night and switched the name tags on several science fair projects. We have security footage of this incident." The competitive mother's face went completely white. She started looking around nervously. "Principal, the person responsible thought they could steal another child's hard work and claim it as their own. However, we know exactly which projects belong to which students because we documented everything before leaving yesterday." I stepped forward and walked over to the solar oven project. "Me. This amazing solar energy project was actually created by this young lady right here." I gestured to the real creator, who looked confused but stepped forward. "Me. She spent weeks researching, saved her own money for supplies, and put incredible effort into this work. Someone tried to steal her achievement, but we're setting the record straight right now." The crowd started murmuring as people realized what was happening. The competitive mother tried to slip toward the exit, but the principal wasn't done. "Principal, the person who did this will be facing criminal charges for breaking and entering, as well as theft. We take the integrity of our students' work very seriously." At this point, Karen couldn't take it anymore. She marched up to the front of the gymnasium. "Karen, this is ridiculous. My son worked hard on that project. You can't prove anything." "Me, actually, we can. We have security footage of you entering the school at 10:15 last night with a key that we believe you copied without permission. We also have photos of all the projects in their original positions." "Karen, my son deserves to win. He's been struggling all year, and this could boost his confidence." "Principal, by stealing another child's work. That's not how we build confidence here." The real project creator stepped forward, looking upset. "Student, I worked really hard on my solar oven. I spent 3 weeks testing different materials and recording all my data. Why would someone take that away from me?" The entire gymnasium erupted in angry murmurs. Parents were shaking their heads in disgust, and several people were recording the confrontation on their phones. "Karen, fine. So what if I switch them? These science fairs are stupid anyway. It's not like it matters in real life." Her own son was now crying from embarrassment. Several parents had to restrain their children from shouting at Karen. "Principal, security is here to escort you off the property. You're banned from all school events and activities for the remainder of the school year. We'll also be pressing charges for breaking and entering." "Karen, you can't do this to me. I volunteer at this school. I donate money to your programs." "Security guard, ma'am, please come with me. You're trespassing now." As Karen was being escorted out, she turned back and screamed at the crowd. "Karen, you're all just jealous that my son is smarter than your kids. This whole thing is rigged anyway." The gymnasium fell silent except for her son's quiet sobbing. Several parents immediately went over to comfort him, while others applauded the real winner of the science fair. After Karen was removed, we proceeded with the awards ceremony. The solar oven project rightfully won first place, and the young creator received a standing ovation from the entire crowd. Parents were coming up to congratulate her and tell her how impressed they were with her work. The competitive mother's son ended up being homeschooled for the rest of the year. Word around town was that Karen couldn't show her face anywhere without people recognizing her as the woman who tried to steal a child's science project. The story made it to the local news, and Karen became somewhat of a local laughingstock. The news report included the security footage of her sneaking into the school, which went viral on social media. The school also discovered that Karen had been using a copied key to enter the building after hours for months. She had been going through teachers' desks and student files, looking for ways to give her son advantages. The criminal charges included multiple counts of breaking and entering, theft, and invasion of privacy. 6 months later, I heard that Karen and her family had moved to a different state. Her son's father had filed for divorce, citing her behavior as harmful to their child's development. The solar oven project creator went on to win the regional science fair and received a scholarship to a summer science camp. She still stops by my classroom sometimes to tell me about her latest experiments. Sometimes justice really does prevail, and cheaters get exactly what they deserve. Story 4. I've been working at this grocery store for 3 years now, and I thought I'd seen everything. People trying to use expired coupons, attempting to return obviously used items, even the occasional shoplifter. But I never expected to deal with someone faking a medical emergency to avoid paying for groceries. It started like any other busy Saturday morning. I was working the express lane, which is supposed to be for 15 items or less. But you know how that goes. People always try to bend the rules, bringing 20 or 30 items through my line because they think I won't count. That's exactly what happened when this woman approached my register. She had a cart overflowing with groceries, easily 50 or 60 items. Expensive stuff too: organic vegetables, premium meats, fancy cheeses, imported wines. The total was going to be well over $200. Ma'am, this is the express lane. It's for 15 items or less. Karen: oh, I'm in a huge hurry. I'm sure you can make an exception just this once. I looked at the line behind her. There were several people with just a few items each, clearly frustrated that they'd have to wait while I rang up her massive order. I'm sorry, but I'll need to ask you to go to a regular checkout lane. There are several open. Karen: are you kidding me? I've been shopping here for years. This is ridiculous customer service. She was already starting to unload her cart onto my conveyor belt, ignoring my request completely. I glanced at my supervisor, who was helping at another register, and decided to just get through it rather than create a bigger scene. The scanning went smoothly enough, though she complained about every single price that came up. When I finally finished and gave her the total, that's when things got interesting. Your total comes to $237.43. Karen: what? That can't be right. Run it again. I can show you the receipt breakdown if you'd like, but the total is correct. She started digging through her purse, pulling out her wallet and fumbling with her cards. After a few minutes of this, she tried to hand me a credit card. The card was declined. I'm sorry, but this card was declined. Do you have another form of payment? Karen: that's impossible. Try it again. I ran it through again with the same result. She tried 2 more cards, both declined. By now, the line behind her was getting restless, and people were starting to switch to other lanes. Karen: this is your machine's fault. These cards work fine everywhere else. Ma'am, I can hold your groceries at customer service while you figure out your payment situation, but I need to help the other customers. That's when she started getting really agitated. Karen: you can't just embarrass me like this in front of everyone. I'm a good customer. I spend a lot of money here. I understand this is frustrating, but I need you to either pay for your groceries or step aside. She looked around at all the people watching, then at her cart full of expensive groceries. I could see the wheels turning in her head, and I had a bad feeling about what was coming next. Suddenly, she grabbed her chest and started making dramatic gasping sounds. Karen: Oh no, oh no, I think I'm having a seizure. She collapsed onto the floor in front of my register, flailing around dramatically. But something was off about it. Real seizures don't look like what you see in movies, and this looked exactly like a movie seizure. The other customers immediately started panicking. Someone called for help over the intercom, and within seconds, store management and other employees were rushing over. Manager, everyone step back. Give her space. Me, should I call 911? Manager, yes, call an ambulance right away. I was reaching for the phone when I heard a voice from the crowd. Nurse, wait, I'm a registered nurse. Let me take a look. A woman in scrubs pushed through the crowd and knelt down beside the woman on the floor. She was clearly just getting off a shift at the hospital nearby. Nurse, ma'am, can you hear me? The woman on the floor continued her dramatic flailing, but I noticed she was being very careful not to actually hurt herself. She was also peeking through her eyelashes to see if people were watching. Nurse, this doesn't look like any seizure I've ever seen. Real seizures don't usually involve this much purposeful movement. She pulled out her phone and started recording. Nurse, ma'am, I'm going to need to check your pulse and breathing. The moment the nurse reached for her wrist, the woman on the floor suddenly stopped moving. She lay perfectly still, clearly hoping everyone would just go away. Nurse, that's interesting. Seizures don't typically stop on command like that. The nurse stood up and looked at my manager. Nurse, I've been working in emergency medicine for 15 years. This is not a seizure. This is someone who doesn't want to pay for their groceries. Manager, are you sure? Nurse, watch this. She walked a few steps away and started talking to another customer, pretending to ignore the woman on the floor. Within seconds, the woman sat up and looked around to see if anyone was still paying attention to her. The nurse's phone caught the whole thing. Nurse, and there we have it. Miraculous recovery the moment she thought no one was looking. The woman realized she'd been caught and quickly lay back down, but it was too late. Everyone had seen her sit up. Manager, ma'am, I'm going to need you to get up now. Karen, I think I'm feeling better. Maybe it was just a dizzy spell. She slowly got to her feet, looking around at all the faces staring at her. The nurse was still recording. Nurse, filing a false medical emergency report is actually a crime, and attempting to defraud a business is also illegal. Karen, I don't know what you're talking about. I really felt faint. Nurse, ma'am, I have 15 years of medical experience and video evidence of you sitting up the moment you thought no one was watching. Would you like me to call the police, or would you prefer to handle this with the store manager? The woman looked around desperately, realizing she was completely caught. Karen, look, I don't have enough money for all this food. My kids are hungry, and I thought. Manager, ma'am, if you're having financial difficulties, we have programs that can help. But faking a medical emergency is not acceptable. Karen, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I just panicked. Nurse, the good news is, I won't report this to the authorities if you agree to never pull this stunt again. But I am keeping this video in case you try this somewhere else. The manager worked out a solution where she could pay for about $50 worth of essential groceries and leave the rest. She quietly paid with cash that she apparently had in her purse the whole time. As she was leaving with her small bag of groceries, she turned back to me. Karen, I'm really sorry. I've never done anything like this before. I hope you won't do it again. There are better ways to handle financial problems. After she left, the nurse came back to my register to buy her own items. Nurse, I've seen people fake injuries to get out of all sorts of things, but this was a first for me. Faking a seizure to avoid paying for groceries, that's a new one. Thank you for stepping in. I had no idea what to do. Nurse, always happy to help. Though I have to say, if she'd actually been having a real seizure, the last thing she'd want is someone recording it. Real medical emergencies aren't performances. A few days later, my manager told me that the woman had called to apologize again, and asked if she could come back to shop. They decided to give her another chance, but with the understanding that any similar behavior would result in a permanent ban. I never saw her again, but I heard from other employees that she became a regular customer who always paid promptly and never caused any trouble. Sometimes I wonder if getting caught in such an embarrassing way actually helped her realize she needed to find better ways to handle her problems. The nurse became something of a local legend at our store. Other employees would always ask if she was working when they had to deal with suspicious medical complaints from difficult customers. She never had to deal with another fake emergency on her grocery runs, but she did help with a few real ones over the years. The whole experience taught me that people will try almost anything to avoid consequences, but it also showed me that sometimes the right person being in the right place at the right time can make all the difference. Story 5. I'm a veteran with severe PTSD from 3 tours in Afghanistan. After struggling with panic attacks and sleepless nights, my therapist recommended equine therapy. Eventually, I got approval for a therapy horse at home, a gentle gelding named Buster, who's helped me more than any medication. I live on 2 acres in a semi-rural area where horses are legal and normal. Most neighbors were supportive when I got Buster 8 months ago, except for one, let's call her Karen. She'd moved in 2 years earlier and complained about everything: my truck repairs, vegetable garden, even my American flag being too big. When I got Buster, Karen immediately complained about smell and flies, despite my daily cleaning and proper waste management. 3 weeks ago, she confronted me directly. "That horse needs to go," she demanded. "It's dangerous and doesn't belong here." I explained Buster was a trained therapy animal with proper permits, but she stormed off threatening to deal with this situation. 2 days later, I heard Buster making distressed noises. Looking outside, I saw Karen throwing rocks at him from her fence. I ran out immediately. "Stop throwing rocks at my horse." "This monster tried to attack me," she lied, claiming Buster had charged her. I found a cut on Buster's shoulder from her rocks. The next morning, animal control arrived after Karen filed a false report claiming Buster attacked her. Fortunately, I'd installed security cameras after her previous complaints. The footage clearly showed Karen approaching the fence, picking up rocks, and throwing them at Buster while he grazed peacefully 20 feet away. The officer cited Karen for filing a false report and animal cruelty, but she escalated, calling the sheriff's department, health department, and local news multiple times. Each investigation cleared me. Then Karen cut through our fence and tried spraying Buster with a hose. She was arrested for trespassing, vandalism, and violating her citation terms. At court, the judge reviewed all evidence, including security footage. Despite Karen representing herself and insisting Buster was dangerous, she was fined $2,000, ordered to pay fence restitution, required to complete anger management, and prohibited from coming within 50 feet of my property. Her failed appeal cost her another $1,500 in my legal fees. A month later, Karen put her house up for sale. Apparently, having an animal cruelty conviction makes it hard to find buyers. Buster's doing great, and I've realized how much my PTSD has improved. I handled this conflict calmly instead of spiraling into panic. Sometimes I see Karen packing, but she won't make eye contact anymore. Buster and I are just glad our peaceful routine is restored.